In the process, I think one of the things we discovered, which we discovered the hard way, was that the first birth is very important. And so the second birth, the birth from above, when Christ comes into my life, we understood that. But we hadn't understood the person's first birth, which meant that in a sense, Acts 17:26, the times and the places are from God. So that young Hindu man, the fact that he comes from a Hindu community is not an accident. You know, God determined his first birth and the time in history and the place in history and the geography and the culture and the religion, everything associated with his first birth. So what we learnt was respect the person's first birth. Now the way I learned it the hard way was my friend who's now the Dean of Faculty, at that time he was a student. He said to me, John, he said, you foreigners, you just stripped the personality off us. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you denigrate us. You make us feel like we're pagans, we're kind of idol worshippers. You guys have got it all figured out. And so he said, you just tear us apart. And wow, and he was becoming a good friend. So then we backtracked and we noticed, what did Jesus do? And always that question had come back. We'd go back to scriptures and say, well, and we noticed that Jesus respected the Samaritans and the story of the woman at the well, and Jesus respected the Greeks, and Jesus respected the Romans, and I mean, everywhere he associated the two demoniacs from the Decapolis, everything that Jesus did was respect the person. Whether he was a leper, whether he was a head of a synagogue, Jesus respected everybody's first birth. Then we realized that God allows for that because Acts 17:26, so that they might reach out and find him. And we realized that was God's purposes, that he determined the person's first birth, which gives the mobility for the gospel.
Yeah.
Because the Hindu can talk to the Hindu. I, as a Westerner, talking to a Hindu, it takes forever in one sense. But he can explain the good news to his family and relatives very simply, because he's a Hindu.
Yeah.
And whether he's high caste Hindu or whether he's just, you know, even a backward community or whatever, everybody's background is important. And people very dark skinned, I can't relate to them because they say, well, you're lucky, you got a good deal of the cards. But I realized a person with black skin can relate to people with black skin. There's no questions. They look at me, well, you were lucky, you know. Yeah. So I realized that everybody, whatever level in society, their particular background was strategic for the mobility of the gospel. And then the second birth from above is not a physical thing, it's a spiritual thing. And that is something that everybody can experience. So then we're equal. And I remember this Hindu guy, he said to me, John, we were studying the book of Ephesians and reading it through, and he said suddenly, we are equal. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I haven't said this to you before, but to me you always look superior because you come from the West, you've got money. In India, the skin color is very important. You've got the right colored skin. He said, you've worshipped Jesus, we've worshipped the idols for hundreds of years. And he just said, I felt inferior to you. But as I've been reading in the book of Ephesians, you know, we are heirs together. We are equal. And he looked at me, he said, I know it, we are equal. And it was like, who cares about the background at this point? Yeah. In Christ, we are equal. Yeah. And I could see it just, and that changed his whole attitude towards me. It changed his attitude towards the living God. He felt accepted. And so that was another exciting thing to realize that the first birth, if I respect the man's or woman's first birth, that often leads to the second birth because he sees me as respecting him as an equal, not as a pagan that needs Jesus. Yeah. So that was an exciting lesson.